Good day, learners! Our lesson is composing an independent critic of a chosen selection. Every day, you get to encounter information that may not be clearly stated, and you may be put to situations where questions cannot be answered immediately. This lesson will help you develop your critical thinking and literacy skills in composing an independent critic of a chosen selection. And this lesson is divided into two. The first one is about the cohesive devices, then the second is writing an independent critic. And here are the objectives for this lesson. First, expand ideas using principles of cohesion. Second, identify the steps in writing an independent critic. Third, compose an independent critic of a specific selection. And for the first part of this lesson, we have the cohesive devices. As I have mentioned earlier, every day you get to encounter information that may not be clearly stated, and you are put to situations where questions cannot be answered immediately. In this case, you are forced to make meanings out of it. Same is true when you read. You encounter words that may be unfamiliar, and you see the need to unlock them to fully comprehend the text. So for this lesson, you will learn how to use the different cohesive devices which are useful in writing and composing independent critiques from a given material. And as you can see here, we have the definition of cohesive devices. When we say cohesive devices, these are words or phrases used to connect ideas between different parts of text. Writers use transitional words and phrases to achieve a clear, logical flow of thought from sentence to sentence and from paragraph to paragraph. And also, we have the techniques in writing or in utilizing the cohesive devices in a critic paper. First technique, we have repetition of a key term or phrase. This helps to focus your ideas and to keep your reader on track. Example that we have here, the problem with contemporary art is that it is not easily understood by most people. Contemporary art is deliberately abstract, and that means it leaves the viewer wondering what she is looking at. So as you can see, we have words that are being repeated in this example, and that words are contemporary art. So meaning to say, we may use the cohesive devices by just repeating the key term or phrase in order for us or for our reader to focus to the idea of the paper. Second, we have synonyms, are words that have essentially the same meaning, and they provide some variety in your word choices, helping the reader to stay focused on the idea being discussed. In our example, we have myths narrate sacred histories and explain sacred origins. These traditional narratives are, in short, a set of beliefs that are a real force in the lives of the people who tell them. Synonyms means words that have the same meaning. And in this example, we have histories, origins, and beliefs as synonymous words to each other. So that's how we can use the cohesive devices technique when we choose the synonyms. We should provide words that have the same meaning with the focus word. And third, we have pronouns. This, that, these, those, he, she, it, they, and we are useful pronouns for referring to something previously mentioned. Be sure, however, that what you are referring to is clear. In our example, we have, when scientific experiments do not work out as expected, they are often considered failures until some other scientists try them again. Those that work out better the second time around are the ones that promise the most rewards. So in this example, the pronouns used are they, them, and those. These pronouns were used to highlight the focus word of the text. And next we have the transitional words. Here are many words in English that cue our readers to relationships between sentences and joining sentences together. The words such as however, therefore, in addition, also, but, and moreover. Example, I like autumn, yet autumn is a sad time of the year too. The leaves turn bright shades of red and the weather is mild. But I cannot help thinking ahead to the winter and the icy storms that will surely blow through here. In addition, that will be the season of chopped faces, too many layers of chocolates to put on, and days when I will have to shovel heaps of snow from my car's windshield. So in this technique for the devices or cohesive devices, the transitional words can also be used to show relationships between different parts of the same sentence. And the transitional words that we have used in this example are yet, but, in addition, and. And always remember that you do not need a transitional word at the beginning of each sentence. And we have the last cohesive device technique, which is the sentence patterns. Sometimes repeated or parallel sentence patterns can help the reader follow along and keep ideas tied together. So we have an example here. It is taken from a speech by President John F. Kennedy. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And now we have the second part of this lesson, which is about writing an independent critic. Let's define what critic is. A critic is a genre of academic writing that briefly summarizes and critically evaluates a work or concept. Critics can be used to carefully analyze a variety of works, such as for creative works, we have the novels, exhibits, film, images, and poetry. For research, we have the graphs, journal articles, systematic reviews and theories, and lastly, we have the media, which are the news reports and pictures articles. How to write a critic? Before you start writing, it is important to have a thorough understanding of the work that will be critiqued. So, it is important to study the work under discussion, followed by making notes on key parts of the work, develop an understanding of the main argument or purpose being expressed in the work, relate the work to a broader issue or context, and lastly, verify claims of the work. So after knowing the steps on writing a critic paper, we have now the features of a critique or the aspects of critic paper. The first feature of critic is the introduction. Typically, the introduction is short. It is less than 10% of the word length, and you should first name the work being reviewed as well as the date it was created and the name of the author or creator. Next, describe the main argument or the purpose of the work. Next, explain the context in which the work was created. Either it is social or political context. Next is the place of the work in a creative or academic tradition, or the relationship between the work and the creator's life experience. And it is followed by having a concluding sentence that signposts what your evaluation of the work will be. For example, or for instance, it may indicate whether it is a positive, negative, or mixed evaluation. Next is the summary. When we say summary, it briefly summarizes the main points and objectively describe how the creator portrays these by using techniques, styles, media, characters, or symbols. The summary should not be the focus of the critic and is usually shorter than the critical evaluation. Critical evaluation or the focus of the critic. This section should give a systematic and detailed assessment of the different elements of the work, evaluating how well the creator was able to achieve the purpose through this. So in critical evaluation, we have the specification for the work and for the criteria. Like for example, for plot structure, we have the criteria, characterization, and setting of a novel. So in critical evaluation, we will systematically or detailed or having a detailed assessment of the characterization of each character and the setting of a novel. For composition of painting, the criteria would be the brush strokes, color, and light. And for research project, if you are going to evaluate a research project, the criteria would be subject selection, design of the experiment, analysis of data, and conclusions. And a critical evaluation does not simply highlight negative impressions. It should deconstruct the work and identify both the strengths and weaknesses. It should examine the work and evaluate its success considering its purpose. So basically, when we say we are going to write a critique for, like for example, in a creative works or in a research or in media, we just don't point out the weaknesses, but also we point out the strengths of it. So we could have a assessment of a work and evaluation of it, focusing on the success and considering the purpose of that text. And here are the examples of key critical questions that could help your assessment or can help you in writing a critical evaluation. First, who is the creator? Is the work presented subjectively or subjectively? Next, what are the aims of the work? Are the aims achieved? Next, what techniques, styles, and media are used in the work? Are they effective in portraying the purpose? And what assumptions underlie the work? Do they affect the validity? What types of evidence or persuasion are used? Has evidence been interpreted fairly? How is the work structured? Does it favor a particular interpretation or point of view? Is it effective? And the last example for key question is, does the work enhance understanding of key ideas or theories? Does the work engage or fail to engage with key concepts or other works in its discipline? So those are the examples of key questions that we may use or could help us in our assessment while writing our critical evaluation. Next to critical evaluation is the conclusion. This is a statement indicating the overall evaluation of the work. This could also be the summary of the key reasons identified during the critical evaluation, why this evaluation was formed, and in some circumstances, when we say conclusion, it is about giving recommendations for improvement on the work that may be appropriate. And for the last feature of critique is the reference list. It includes all the resources cited in your critique or all your evidence or source. And lastly, we have the checklist for a critique. So this is the checklist that may help you in writing your critique paper. And of course, to easily know what part of critique paper you are. So first, have I? So ask yourself if you have already first mentioned the name of the work. the date of its creation, and the name of the creator. Next, accurately summarize the work being critiqued. Next is, have I mainly focused on the critical evaluation of the work, or have I systematically outlined an evaluation of each element of the work to achieve the overall purpose? Next, have I used evidence from the work itself as well as other sources to support and illustrate my assessment of elements of the work, formed an overall evaluation of the work based on critical reading? And lastly, for the checklist, have I used a well-structured introduction, body, and conclusion? And have I used correct grammar, spelling, punctuation, clear presentation, and appropriate referencing style? So those are the checklists for a critique. Remember that critiquing is an in-depth evaluation of the story for the purpose of giving the reading public insight into a certain story or write-ups. So in writing critique paper, it requires us to reassemble the elements in such a way that your intended audience has a better understanding of the story's strengths, weaknesses, and highlights. So just like what I have mentioned earlier, we are writing a critique paper not just by pointing out the weaknesses of a certain creative works, research, or media works, but also to highlight the strengths for us to easily determine the purpose of each work. And just like any other essay, a critic uses a formal or academic writing style, and it has a clear structure, namely the introduction, body, and conclusion. And that's how our lesson concludes. I hope that you've learned a lot on how to compose an independent critique of a chosen selection. Goodbye.